Well, welcome everyone. We are so glad you guys could, of course, join us again for another Talk It Over. We, of course, have Carolyn again with me, which is awesome. We always seem to have very good conversations. Wherever you guys are getting this from, whether it's YouTube or if it's on a podcast, wherever you find those, we certainly glad you guys are here to join us. And we, of course, want you guys to comment in the comments. We will, of course, get back to those comments as soon as we can. Yes. And we are, of course, excited to dive into today's message. But, of course, before we do that, we want to catch up with, of course, each other as well as you guys. So, Carolyn, how has your week been so far?
My week has been good. It's been a good week. Just as I shared earlier, I'm in a transition from working in a hospital rehab-based children's treatment center into private practice and virtual therapy, and so it's been a bit different, but I'm slowly building up potentials. And it was a good week with work, and we had a great I love playing cards. As you know, we're real games people. And my boys humored me. It's family day weekend here in Ontario, and so we got to play a game of Rook. And we had a good time doing that as a family, so it was really good just to hang out and have some fun on Friday night and having some good meals. My boys always appreciate my cooking and baking, so that's been fun too. Nice.
Right on. Oh, man. For me, week's been pretty busy. Work's been staying very steady. Which
Cars break down, eh?
Yes, they do. And that seems to be an ongoing problem. So, yes, things for me have been pretty steady at work. Things have been going well. Things for Emmett have been going good. School's been good, so that's of course a positive. Crazy weather though we've had. Wow, the wind was just
yesterday
crazy.
Here in Ontario, you couldn't even see across our street. It was, roads were closed. It was, you can tell we live in the great north.
Yes, a true Canadian winter has seemed to drop upon us there. It was certainly haven't had that kind of weather. I can't remember exactly when, but it's been a while since we've had weather like that. I'm so thankful to have a truck that has 4x4 and was able to plow through a lot of that. No problem, being able to get out and do a few small things before the roads really did get shut down. So, that was good. Of course, we had our Super Bowl last weekend.
Yes, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun. It was a great game. It was very close, a lot of fun. Of course, food was excellent.
Food was good.
Got to do a lot of food things, which was fun. Deep fried some things. Did some Mars bars, which which was good. Enjoyed those. We of course had chicken, fries, wings, all of course those favorites. Let us know, guys. Maybe you guys did something similar on the Super Bowl. Maybe you guys again did that kind of tailgate party. Got to deep fry some foods. Maybe not so deep fry. Maybe air fry. Maybe you went all vegetables, which of course I would find less exciting. Especially on a day like that. But if that's what you guys do, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys could celebrate, do that together. Because, of course, we enjoy that community and being together and celebrating and having those fun moments together.
Yes, we do.
So this week, of course, we are back with Pastor Craig, continuing in the second last of our pre-decide messages. Again, excellent series.
It's been amazing.
It's been so good. And Craig, of course, has been just doing such a great job. And if you guys haven't had a chance, head over to our YouTube channel, LifeNorth.Church. All of that is there. You guys can rewatch if you've watched them already. If you haven't watched them, start watching them in our Pre-Decide series. Everything, of course, is there. And, of course, previous Talk It Overs on Pre-Decide, of course, are all there. So, again, continuing in that awesome message series. Of course, today's message title is One Word That Will Change Your Life, which, that's powerful. That's a real powerful message when you have just like thinking one word that could change your life. Man, and of course, we're going to dive into that a little further. But before that, of course, Craig always likes to start this, of course, message series with a few kind of key points, I think, that we kind of keep touching back on that are really the focus point about this pre-decide. That, of course, the decisions, the direction of our lives is decided by the quality of our decisions. And I know those decisions can really take us on a path that God has for us or really kind of get us down that rabbit hole, really off track in the direction that God really has for us. And I know that can be true for a lot of us. I know I've had those moments where some of the choices I made certainly were not the most positive choices I've ever made in life.
Well, and it's funny you talk about rabbit tracks because around here we have lots of rabbits.
Yes.
And my husband has a beautiful garden, so we relocate our rabbits who like to eat all of our expensive plants. But this winter I've just been seeing it just snowed and yet these little rabbit tracks are hopping right down to where they go, and how those habits opposed to the decisions can just really impact us.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly it. Seeing the rabbits doing the exact same thing in the middle of winter when there is nothing to eat, and continuing to do the same thing without any different decision made. I think that's very true for a lot of us. We get into those habits over the decisions. So we of course we have I'd say kind of the real big title for this one. Maybe even words to live by is when faced with whatever that might be for you guys. I have pre-decided to, again, whatever that might be. So whether that's, when I'm faced with, a financial crisis, I've pre-decided to talk to God.
Yeah.
That's my first step. So whatever that is for you guys, let us know. We would love to know what some of those things maybe you are facing or have faced, and what you're pre-deciding now for some of those, or what you already have pre-decided. We would love to hear from you guys. Now, of course, Craig has his wheel of this message,
Yes.
Each part of it. So we'd like to start that off with, of course, I am ready, I am consistent, I am devoted, I am generous, I am faithful, I am a finisher. And man,
Yeah.
that one word, we're leading into that faithful. That is our one word for sure, I think, for today, as Craig touched on. Now, I like how Craig kind of put in this message that we're not accidentally faithful. That's not something we're accidentally, we just fall into being faithful. We need to be intentional with that. We need to be very pointed in what we're being faithful in, because accidentally we don't just fall into being faithful in following God, and faithful with our finances, faithful with the relationships we have. Like, we don't just happen upon that. That's just not something we do. So I thought that was kind of really neat how he started that out with. That's the direction we're headed with this faithful. Now, of course, faithfulness needs to revolve around three things. And Craig talked about this, about people, resources, and obeying God. Those are the three kind of main central points about what it means to be faithful. And of course, we'll dive into this a little deeper, what each of these are. Now, being faithful, when we interact with people, we need to show God's love, be an encouragement, and extend grace. And I think, again, that's part of us being faithful with what God's asking us to be. He's asking us to be what He is. And that's, being an encouragement, being faithful in extending grace, in His love, and being able to show that. Resources, that's a big one.
Yeah, it is.
Especially in this time, being faithful with resources and being diligent with what we have, especially now where it's a lot of hold on to what I have, keep it close.
That scarcity mindset that we talked about before, right? That the world says, hold on to it, you might run out, and God's saying, no, be generous with each other and with the resources you've given them. And
that, I think that really hits a real strong chord right now, especially with the way things are. Being, faithful with the resources. And every resource we have is an opportunity to multiply. And of course, we need to steward what God has given us. And we need to steward it well. And that, of course, again, is being faithful with what we have. Because, of course, God does talk about, in the parables, about being generous and being given talents. And not hiding it, right? Being faithful with what we've been given. So again, it's an opportunity. The last is, obeying God. And what does that look like to be faithful in obeying God? And I love how Craig put it about obedience is our responsibility. The outcome is God's. And so, again, it really ties back again. You can be obedient in your finances. You can be obedient with what you have. You can be obedient to how God is working through you to show Him to the world, to others. Yeah. And so, it's... And
I loved his analogy. Like sometimes in the message, if you haven't checked it out, please do. But he talks about this really poignant time where he felt God was calling him to be obedient, and he followed after it. And you see how important that is. And the last example he gave, just because my husband's a pastor, I had cringe for my boys, but he just used an example of, feeling like he needed to pray for one of his kids and kind of saying, okay, God, I'll wait till his friends go. And then God was like, no, go do it. And he stands up and prays with his son. And it's an awkward moment. And he's like, I don't know what the point of that was. I was just being faithful. And sometimes we don't always see what the obedience is really supposed to be about. But God still wants us to be obedient because he is doing something through that. And just sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't.
It is. And it's amazing to what God has for us.
Yeah.
And of course, we want to follow what God is prompting us to. And that's part of what you were describing, that sometimes we get those prompts about, we need to do something. God's saying, you need to go do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And we need to follow those. And sometimes I've missed some of those. I've missed some of those prompts. And certainly I could have missed out on a blessing on someone, maybe a blessing on me by not listening to that prompt. And so we want to be obedient to when we're being prompted by God to follow what he's asking us to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to jump into scripture here, kind of one of those ones that was, again, part of what Craig was describing. It's found in Ephesians 4:29, and it is, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And again, that's talking about the people around us and encouraging and being that encouragement, that light, that everything, showing them the love, the grace that we need. Again, I just absolutely love that. It's such a strong one because Craig talks about the words can either cut you down or build you up, and they can be extremely powerful. And so we want to follow what God is calling us to, which is not to speak unwholesome things about people or to people. We need to build them up, encourage them, extend them grace. So we're going to dive into these questions because these are excellent, and this is, of course, an excellent topic. So, Carolyn, if you could choose one word, now, of course, Craig talked about this in the message, kind of that one word goal to achieve in your life, what would that one word be that you would choose?
Yeah, I have a couple that God really laid on my heart. One of them's mercy, and that's actually one of my spiritual gifts. And so I really feel like that God really covers that, and I bring that into my work with working with families with disabilities and working with parents. And what the second word that I really feel God is saying to me is authenticity.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And for me growing up, there were a lot of times where I saw the value of just being honest with where you're at, right? And the song that we sang today in the series, like, come just as you are. You don't have to have a pretense. And I really do believe that that's really what I want to always be. And sometimes it's not pretty, right?
Yeah.
And the more you spend time with people, the more you see their harder moments. But I just really want to be authentic in everything that I do. And own up to the things that I'm not doing well, being quick to apologize, being quick to be willing to share what's going on or what are my thoughts behind my mood or my action. And I just really see that. Growing up, my favorite story was the Velveteen Rabbit. And just becoming real. And I think authenticity is really the one that God just really said, Carolyn, I need you to learn more about that. So how do I live an authentic life?
That's a good one. That is a really, really good one. That's a deep word. Authentic. That is a deep word. That's a good one. I like that.
What about for you? Is there one that you've been thinking about?
I think for me, it's perseverance. I think that's a big one.
What a great word.
I think it is for me. Throughout life for me, for sure, I had to persevere through things that are difficult, things that are hard. Yeah. And again, each of our journeys, our hards and things can differ to what they are. But for me, facing bullying is a big one. And persevering through that and not just quitting, not stopping, not giving up. And just trying to, again, persevere through those hard moments and, having teachers not believe in you. And again, it can really change the direction you head, and it did change my direction to a certain point. But continuing to persevere through those difficulties, those hard times, and finding low support and low motivation from others around me. and not having that believe in, and it really relied on me to really persevere through some of that, to really push through, and not really, rely on people, which again changed me later in life. Again, not relying on people, it built that into me because of those hard experiences. About I'm going to persevere through myself and not rely on others. But the perseverance, it doesn't have to be done alone. And I've learned that.
And you've learned that, right? By coming to LifeNorth.Church and probably Emmett's journey.
Yes. My little guy's journey certainly affects, that persevering with others and really opening up to others. And so that's helped me, coming to LifeNorth.Church really opened that up for me and what that looked like about persevering but not doing it alone. Right. And I'm a firm believer in, never quitting, always pushing through. Something, of course, me and my son talk about when we're doing our martial arts is winners, of course, never quit, and quitters never win. And to me, that's a perseverance one for me, is just pushing through and keeping that in my mind, that if I want to win at things, I want to accomplish stuff, I have to persevere. Because if I stop, I'm not going to get to that. And I could, quit on 6, right? Again, another series.
Yeah, don't stop on 6.
Don't stop on 6. So again, that's another story. But yes, so let us know, guys, what's that word for you? Maybe something you guys have been working on, personally, what that word might be, or something that you've been with you for a long time, like for us, that word's been with us for quite a while, and something that's really helped us to get us through or to become better of who we are, and try to bring people around us to be better.
And how those words can be encouraging, right? So just hearing Ian talk about perseverance, I'm thinking, I want to be authentically persevering through life, and what a great challenge, right?
Exactly.
You can build on them.
Exactly. You can build on those words and really, look to what that is. And of course, praying to God, asking Him, maybe there's a word focusing around right now for you, even if it's just a period of time, what that word might be that God has for you, and working through that maybe this year. Of course, we've talked about that before, our words. And
it's the same, trust.
So that's our word for this year, and it's not necessarily a life word, but it's one that's for this year, and maybe that's something for you guys to dive into, to talk to God and maybe find out that word is. So with that in mind, and again talking about faithfulness, and Craig talked about that being kind of that main word that we all need to focus on, is faithfulness. What do you think faithfulness matters? Why do you think it matters so much to God? Why is it so important?
I think God wants all of us to recognize His faithfulness. So I really see faithfulness as a characteristic of God. And the more that we learn it ourselves, we get to know Him so much better. And I think that's a big part of that faithfulness of this is the way to live, not in scarcity, not in pride, not in possessions or in success, but to look at faithfulness as just being such an enduring quality of who God is. And as we learn that, I think it helps us, it helps people around us, it helps us take risks. And I just think it's so important for God to demonstrate that to us. And I think as a parent, and you can agree to that too, there's so many things that we want to teach our kids to say, I don't want you to just intellectually know it. I want you to know it at the core of your heart.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's why faithfulness is so important to God.
Yeah, that faithfulness, there's an amount of trust involved in faithfulness. And I know for God, it's like, if there was no trust, there was no faith, if He just gave us all that we ever wanted, there'd be no need to have a relationship. We would just get what we need. And so that faithfulness, that trust, and knowing that God will provide, and trusting and being faithful that He will, really builds that relationship with Him. And I think that's a main part of what faithfulness is. And again, He just, you need to demonstrate that faithfulness in every area of your life. It's not just I need to be faithful with my relationship with God, but I need to be faithful with the people around me. I need to be faithful with what God has given me to look after or to steward here on earth. And again, just being faithful in what He's calling us to do. And so again, it ties into those three pieces. And I think that's why it's so important, because God really wants us to be faithful in every area of our life, not just I'm going to be faithful with my relationship with Him. It needs to, expand out. It's like that root system again. Another message that we had, which was of course an excellent one, but that roots go into everything. And God wants us to have that faithfulness in every area of our life.
Because it does. It makes you stronger, just like a good root system does. And you get replenished quicker. Yeah.
So very important. And I really feel that's kind of where God's after this faithfulness is what we're discussing here, is just all those areas. We just need to be faithful with what we have, what we can do, and who's around us, and be faithful with those things. So we're going to read Matthew 25, verse 21. And then we're going to have a little question here. So his master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." And yeah, again, that parable about the talents, and gave 5, gave 2, gave 1, and the one with 5, the one with the 2 or the 3 went out and doubled what they had. The 1 buried it. And again, further in that, he talks about the one about being a wicked, lazy servant, and not trying to multiply what he's been entrusted with. So, what are some smaller things you've been faithful with, and what did you learn about God by being faithful with those things?
I was fortunate that I grew up in a Christian family where I got to see my grandparents and my parents demonstrate this. And right early on, my things I've always seen as God's. I'm always seeing those things as something that God wants me to share and to use and to benefit others with. And so I'm not possessive of this is mine. This is really God's to be used. And I really see that I see things aren't as important to me. So it's probably where I started. But just being faithful in those things and just putting the right perspective on that. Yep. And I think the harder thing for me is relationships. And really trusting that God is going to do, I can be faithful for him in through those. Because relationships are messy.
They are, yeah.
People are imperfect. I'm imperfect. We can rub each other the wrong way. We can irritate each other. And so learning to be faithful in relationships has definitely been harder. Relationships, again, as you said, are messy, and they can be trying, they can be difficult. And sometimes it can be hard to be that encouragement, even extending grace. Sometimes, again, things we've talked about previous about, we set the standard at our best and what everybody else should reach, but really, our best, we don't reach that very often. It's very minimal where we reach that, but we set it so high. And trying to, again, navigate relationships can be difficult, can be hard, and certainly can be trying, of course, at times. But again, being faithful in some of those small areas. So, as you're saying, like possessions, things like that. Something for me was finances. That was one of those ones that was kind of difficult to be around. Again, growing up, had very little, money was very, very tight, didn't allow for much of anything. And so it was always this mindset of, I've got to hold on. And that's how I was brought up, because that's what we had. And, but looking at things now and changing my perspective and starting, years ago, with probably 11 years ago now, and starting my tithe, and just being faithful in that for that small bit, that 10%, has really changed how I view my finances. As what you were saying about, it's not mine, it's God's. He's given it to me. I'm stewarding it for him, but it's not really mine. He's allowing me to keep and use 90% of what he's given me. And so that small thing really changed my heart in how I look at money and how I use money and what it's really meant to do. And it can do really good things. And I'm learning more about how to maximize or multiply what I have to make it go further. Yeah. And so that blessing for me of just that small piece certainly can make a big difference. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be small. And that 10%, it's not much, but it makes a huge difference in your heart. And being, of course, faithful with that 10% each week, it makes a big difference in how you perceive
finances, and even other areas of your life.
I love also just living out that principle and talking about it, because I know for some of my girlfriends at work, 10% of their income, they're like, what? Are you crazy? And they know my husband's a pastor, and so, right, a lot of their husbands are in business. Their resources are different, and I keep saying, yeah, like I will never not tithe, because I have just seen the blessing, not always materially, but just God blessing us in health, or blessing us in friendships, or blessing us in just our cars that never give out. They talk about Moses and their shoes never wearing out. No, Ian, I know you think we drive our cars longer than we should, but I've been amazed at how long cars have lasted us. And God has just been really, really faithful in that. And our kids have seen it, right? That with all the job changes and losses and starting the church, and right, that was a big risk factor for Dave and I.
Yep.
And just seeing how God continues to provide. So I love it. But you're right. We do. Safety is important.
Yes. No, it is. And yeah, those small blessings that we see certainly, make a difference when we make that small change and trust God and have that faithfulness in those small areas, make a big difference. I think we're flying through time here. We're going to try to get to this one last question here. So share a time when someone trusted you, added value to your life, or helped make you better. How could you help those around you by adding value to their lives?
Well, I need to talk about my husband here, Dave. Dave has brought so much value into my life, and we are very different. We are very different in so many different ways. And I am just so thankful for his wisdom and for his belief. And one of the reasons, and we were laughing about this when we went out for a walk the other day, that one of the things that really attracted me to Dave was the fact that I knew I needed somebody in my life who was going to risk for God. We once did a survey thing that looked at, what kind of change agent are you? And Dave is like a visionary, like forward, and I'm the anchor. And we were married probably 5 years, and we both started laughing because it was so true. I'm more traditional. I don't like a lot of change. I can get easily overwhelmed. And I just love the fact that he has built into my life about God is faithful and you can risk with God. And I am just so thankful that God brought us together at camp, and that we have had the life we've had, and it's not been boring. And we definitely have so many God stories, and I just really appreciate that and how he's built into me. And then in turn, I can turn around and tell people that risk is important. As a scarcity, fearful person is my default and where I drift towards. I'm thankful for someone who builds in that value of faith.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Somebody who's very, let's not have change, and of course, knowing Dave, it's like, let's change everything. So I can see how that can be overwhelming.
For both of us, right?
Yeah, for both of us, because it works both ways. But that is quite funny, because knowing Dave, it's very let's cutting edge, let's change, let's I understand.
Or the areas where he's much neater than me. The boys were laughing at me because I finally cleaned my office. It looked like a bomb had, and Dave and I share the space. And in those areas, I'm not consistent or routine. I'm like chaos, and that's where he is. So even where I should be more of that, I'm not. So it's so funny.
That is funny. That is funny. For me, I guess it was probably my Taekwondo master. Early on, when I was young, very not confident in who I was. Again, dealing with just low amount of belief in me by others around me, really changed my perspective, really added value that, no, you are better, you are focused, you can accomplish this, you can do that. And with that push, started as a white belt, working on my 3rd degree now in black belt. And just that change in motivation from him, and him believing and trusting that I can do vastly more than what I believe I can. And again, it's the same perspective that God has for us. We can do vastly more than we expect, and God can really provide us with the strength and direction we need to get there. So having that kind of figure visibly in front of me at that age made a huge difference in my life. in the direction that I went and being confident in who I am. And so I want to be able to pass that along. I want to build into that with someone else. And again, working on, again, a different message Craig was talking about, you need to be mentoring somebody that's half your age and being mentored by somebody half your age older. And so I've been working on, for me, what that looks like and where do I want to invest my time. And so for me, that's, I'd like to continue to pass that encouragement on because I've seen it. It's helped me. And I know it could help at least somebody else.
And I just want to say from my perspective is I know a lot of people think age is a big factor. And age isn't. My grandma, who took me in when she was 62 years old, and I had 18 years with her, and that woman revolutionized my life and made me who I was today. And so if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, I'm too old or I'm too young, age isn't a factor. Give back.
Yeah. If you're thinking, I don't know what a Facebook is or what a thing is, you know what? I didn't either. I got into it very late, but I'm on it. I can continue to connect and stuff with people through it. So you're never too old to try something new and get connected with that person that, maybe younger than you, maybe older than you. Always looking for that wisdom. That can really, of course, build into you as well as building into them because it gives them a different perspective, right? And again, it's all perspectives in what we see and what we do. And those perspectives can really change not just us, but the people around us. So with that, as the final thought, we are, of course, blasting through time, and we are at the end of our time together, guys. Whew, but it was good. It was good. And, of course, each and every week, I just love this. I love diving into this. I love talking about all these messages because they just are so impactful. So, again, I want to thank you guys all for joining us again. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, catching us on a podcast, we just want to thank you guys all for tuning in and just continuing to be here and involved in what's going on. But really, we want you guys to get really connected with a life group. So you two friends can easily jump into that. Again, dive into these questions even deeper than what we are today and really get more out of it, more perspective, and of course can bring a lot more to it by doing that. So you two friends, it's not a big deal. It's really simple. And it's, of course, brings out great conversation. And I want to thank the tech behind us here, making all this happening. We've got the cameras, we got everything going here. So without that, we wouldn't be able to have this going without that setup and all the editing, everything else, of course, behind the scenes. So we want to thank you guys so much each and every week for helping us put this all together. And again, you can check out us on Facebook. We're there. Things are going on there. YouTube, we're there. LifeNorth.Church. Everything's happening. Get connected. And of course, we'd love to hear from you guys. So with that, we would, of course, like to sign off and saying, you know what? Whoever finds God finds life.